Access module number 2, session 2. We're at the place where we want to add more fields to the table that we just added in, which is the patient one. But is there a quicker way than doing one by one? And there is. It's called the data type gallery. So it adds more fields that commonly are added, so they do it in a grouping. So let's jump back down to our Access file. I'm in my patient folder. And then I'm going to click over here on the email because wherever my focus is where they're going to be inserted. So up to the menu we go of fields. Inside of fields, we have an option in the add and delete of more fields. I'm going to hit my drop down. So here are all the other ones I was talking about because there's quite a few of them in there. I mean, we know the yes, no, but there's also the check, the true, false, on or off. And then down at the bottom, this is the gallery, the quick start gallery. So it doesn't just add in one field, it adds in many fields that are common with that name. So we want to click on the one that says address. So look up back, I have phone, email, fax. I clicked on email, and when I hit address, sure enough, between that, now they added in all of these other fields. Well, it's good and it's bad because, I mean, the word zip postal is a little old fashioned. State Providence is old fashioned too. So we want to modify these 5. So I'm going to get back into our design view because I do like this view the best. And we're going to find that country and region. I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to go right up into this ribbon and then click on delete. Let's just get rid of that one, right? How about title? That's a little old-fashioned too. We're going to delete that one. We can do more than one at the time. So we would like to delete facts, country, and notes. So I'm going to click with that arrow pointing to the right, click, hold on, drag down. 3 of them are selected, and then click on delete rows. I don't have to. I could have used my shift key. That means shift means through, control means that I could select each one that are non-adjacent, but I like to click and drag when they're touching each other. Let's go to state and Providence. Let's get rid of the word Providence in there, right? I also want to do that for my caption so that doesn't show up because that's a little old-fashioned too. I'm going to go to zip, get rid of the word postal. I'm also going to get down there for my caption too and get rid of postal. I think we're going to go back a little bit here and then also change some of the field types. So let's go to our phone number. Now, phone is a number. That's crazy because you're not going to add and subtract these. So these we would like a short text. And let's change this to be only 14. Now, this is a lovely place where we could put an input mask. And it's a build button with, we see those dots in there to have those parentheses if we wanted to. Address, going to click on that one, change that to be 35, right? And then over down in, let's see, city. Let's change that one to be 25 characters. That would be lovely. State. Let's change that one to be 2. Zip. Yep, here we go. Change that to 1 to be 10. So that means no one can enter in like 11 characters on that. All right. Patient ID is going to be our PK. And not every single table will have a foreign key. So this table, patient ID, the patient ID will actually show up in another table over in the visit or the billing one, and that's when the patient ID turns into a foreign key in these other tables, but not in this one. All right, let's just give this a little bit more love. We're going to go down here to caption and call this patient space ID. Last name and first name do the same thing. Last space name and first, right? First space name, which is good design. Remember, you want to narrow it down to the smallest component. Birth date, how about a caption of date of birth to make life super nice in there? And then we are going to hit save, flip on over to our design view. And then if any of these look a little bit small, which Some of these kind of do. Let's just kind of make them a little bit bigger there. All right. And then, of course, when I close this, it's going to ask me. So I'm just going to close and yes to change the layout of that. All right. Now, what about having a default value? So when a new record is entered, it automatically will show up. So we would normally do Wisconsin, but Donna and the lady that we work for, Donna, is in Georgia. So I'm going to go back to the view of this one, go down to state, click on state, the bottom changes, and then down at the bottom for the default value, I'm going to type in GA. Now notice what happens when I hit my tab key. It puts quotes around it. So the quote marks tell it that it's a label. Okay, now let's flip on back. So we're going to go back to the datasheet view, save this, and notice how Georgia is already there. So I have a couple of records to enter. So the patient ID is 13250. I'm just going to put my name in there. I will not tell you my date of birth, nor is it required, so I don't have to. See what happens with phone number? See, there's no mask on that one. That would be nice if there was a mask. I'm just going to put in what the book says for some of these addresses in here. City is Atlanta, and the zip code is 30303. I'll put my email in there. Watch my pencil, hit my tab. I'm on my new record. This one is Perez Lewis 11/30 1990 oops 88. See, but this is why, see how this can be a little crazy if you don't put an input mask? See how one person enters one way, one enters in the other way? That's where it gets wonky, and you don't want that. And this is in Decatur, and George is already there for us, which is lovely. And of course, I entered in the zip code wrong with one, so maybe we need a requirement in there. And then I'm just going to put in a little email at there, gmail.com. Okay, now, do I have to hit save? Look at that, bring it on back. I do not. Why? Because of the pencil. Okay, so let's add in some more records by importing a text file. Okay, let's go take a look at the text file that we downloaded for this file. Or, whoops, come on, my laptop here is being kind of goofy. So, and that was the patient text file. So I'm going to double click that baby. That way you can see what it looks like. Oh my gosh. Now, isn't this crazy? So a .txt means it's a text file. And what's nice about this one, it has what we call delimitators, meaning some kind of symbol that separates one field from another field. And then again, notice those quotes around things. So it's going to go find the commas and then what do I do? Meaning comma and then put it in the next field. Okay, so I'm going to close my patient and I'm going to go up to external data, new source data from file, from a text file. We just did this, so this looks kind of familiar. I'm going to browse to my downloads and sure enough, there is my text file right there. I'm going to hit open and then what do I want to do? So I want to append this and I want to append this to the patient table. Now, the way I do it is I always close my table before I do this, because sometimes if you leave it open, it gets kind of fussy with you. It doesn't like that. All right, I'm going to hit OK. It says it's a delimitated or a fixed width. So a fixed width, I'd have to say that every single field has the same number of characters. We don't have to because we have commas in here. I click on next. I tell it's look at that. It was one step ahead of me. It found the comma and then it's separated and I can preview and that looks beautiful. Double checks me to make sure it's the patient table, which it is. And then all I have to do is hit finish. Don't need to save. Double click my patient. We went from just those two records now to 51. Isn't that cool? All right. Now, if we were in the classroom setting, I would have you open up these three tables. So I'm going to double click, double click, double click. And then try to envision how they're going to talk to each other. So we have a visit ID and a patient ID. There's the patient ID. There's a visit ID, patient ID, visit ID with billing. It's like you get familiar with your tables to find what we have these common fields. All right, let me go back to our ebook, and I'm going to cruise right on down to the bottom portion, which is so important of defining these relationships. So when you define a relationship to have the tables talk to each other, we call it that you're joining the tables together, so that way you can create any kind of question query you want to it. And then it gives us the example right in here that we have these three tables, and you're looking for the common field. So it would be the primary, and when it shows up into another one where it can be repeated, it's now called the foreign key. And then sure enough, in this one, here is, I think this one's the primary, right, to the foreign. There, where's the visit ID? Visit ID in, oh wait, I'm sorry, this is a different table. Sorry, where's the billing table? They're just giving us a little bit of a different example right here. So as we define and we're looking at these, then we have to figure out what kind of relationship do we want. Do we want a one-to-many? It only can appear one time in the first table, many, many times in the second table, or can it only appear one time in one table, one time in the other table, or the hardest of the three relationships, it can appear many, many times in the first table and then many, many times in the second table. And that one's a hard one. Now, if we flip on over to the integrity again, the first integrity I introduced you to was the entity integrity, where every single table we have has to have a primary key. That way we don't have duplicates. Now what we have is this referential integrity, where this is the rule about how the tables talk to each other. So you want to maintain this consistency between the tables, so when you make a change in one table, the change then flows to the next one. And that is through this idea of the cascade up and cascade on delete. Okay, and let me show you what I mean. So I'm going back inside of Access. I'm going to close all three of my tables here, and then we're going to go up to Database Tools and then click on Relationships. So relationships in the background is empty because we cannot create any kind of report, form, or query on all three tables at the same time. So let's bring in the patient table. So I can either double click or click it once and hit add, and the visit table. And I'm going to go ahead and close that. And if I lost it, it's just the show table button. Okay. Now you can bring these around, swing them around, make them bigger, make them smaller, whatever you like. Now, to do this relationship, you drag and drop. So I'm going to grab the patient ID from the patient table, click and hold on, and then I'm going to drag it over to the other one on top of the patient ID. And then when I do that, it says from what table to what field, what table and what field. But then what we really want to do is enforce the integrity. So if we change one, it changes the other to cascade up, and then we click on create. So access shows a one to many with a one to infinity sign. And then if we're not sure, all we do is we double click it, and then we can see what kind of relationship we truly have. All right, we have two tables talking to each other. Now we have to add the third one. So show table, we want to add in the billing table. So I'm going to click add and close. I'm going to drag that billing one over to the other side of visit. And then I'm going to click on the visit ID, click, hold on, and drag it over to visit ID. Enforce the integrity, cascade up. So if I delete something in a table that it relies on, like you can't bill something if they don't visit. You can't visit something unless they are a patient, and you want that. Do you feel that? That's kind of an integrity of your database, because how can I bill somebody if I have no idea who they are and when they came? And then click create. All right, and now I'm double checking. I double click my line to double check, and sure enough, there it is. And we have this word of one to many. Now, the relationships that we create inside of Access, it likes the one to many. But in a true database, when we get going further on in something more complicated, then the other two relationships will take place. All right, I'm going to close my relationships. I definitely want to save this, and I can use this file when we hit module number 3.